Hey, I bet you think this is going to be another one kind of videos, don't you? But it's not. You ready to go? Time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101 Knots. There's 100 million different knots out there, and I'm just going to cover the basics. I'm going to cover the stuff that I use myself, and who am I? But still, I'm just going to show you what I use, because I'm sure most of all these knots you guys know. I mean, y'all ain't dumb. I'm sure most of you guys know this stuff. But there's also some guys that don't know this stuff. So I don't mind sharing it. And I'm going to use some white paracord. So if I skip some of the turns in these knots, forgive me, because you can't tighten this stuff down like that. It just don't work that way. I have a carabiner here I'm going to use as my prop to show you how these knots go. The first knot I want to show you guys is the one I use 99.99.96 of the time. It's called a Palomar. Now, Palomar knot, I've seen these guys on YouTube use it on braid, and that works. I use it on braid. I don't use it on fluorocarbon. Now, I've seen these guys use it on fluorocarbon, even some of the pros, and I'm still thinking, I have never had a fluorocarbon line stay intact with a Palomar knot. I break it every time, whether I keep the knot loose or whether I cinch it down. Doesn't matter. It breaks every time. So I tend to not use it. But for monofilament, for braid, absolutely. We start by doubling the line. And you're going to pass it through the eye of the lure. Bring it up just like that. You're going to tie an overhand knot with that loop. See that? Pass the lure through the loop that you just made. The trick here is make sure both sides of this loop pass over the knot. See how I did that? Here's your loop. Follow your loop around. And you see, I bring it right up over the knot. Now, I'll wet it, and I'll also keep this knot loose. This is a trick that guys don't tell you when they're teaching you how to do this knot. You keep this knot loose. I wet it. I take the main line, and I cinch it down as far as I can get it to go, and I stop. I don't put pressure on it. I'll wet it again. I take the tag end and pull that through. Okay, that's how I do it. And it cinches the knot up. Naturally, because this is paracord, it's not going to want to cinch up. Not with that knot. But that's the Palomar. And if you look, the loop is above the whole attachment. Now, if you tie this with monofilament or braid, this will tighten down. I just wanted you to see what this is going to look like in the process. Okay? This is my main knot. I use this for braid and monofilament. It doesn't matter. I use it. I will not use it for fluorocarbon. Doesn't happen. The next knot I want to show you guys is it's called the double loop clinch, but it's also called a Berkeley knot. And what this is, I'm going to take the tag end, I'm going to run through twice and create a loop just like that. Okay? I will take the tag end, and I'm going to run it. It's best to run it about 5 times. I'm just going to run it a couple, 3 times because it's going to be hard to tighten it up. Okay. I'll take the tag end. I'm going to run it through both loops. You see I formed a loop here, and this is the loop from wrapping it twice. I'm going to pass this line straight through everything. Always wet your knot. And I'm going to pull it tight. And there you go. Double loop clinch, Berkeley knot, improved clinch knot, however you want to call it. If I tie a clinch knot, this is how I do it. I don't do it any other way. The only time I use a clinch knot is if I'm casting weights out in the backyard, because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to lose it. But a clinch knot, I promise you, will slip every time you use it. Never fails. That's why I don't use them. Now, the third knot is what's called a San Diego jam. This one I'll use on fluorocarbon, and actually I use this on my slider worms a lot if I'm using a fluorocarbon leader. And a San Diego jam, it's the exact same thing as the clinch. You're going to come through twice. Just like that. Form your little loopy-doop. Okay? But you come up here, then you start wrapping your main line or your tag end around the main line. See what I'm doing here? I'll show you again. I'm coming up about halfway between the tag end and the lure. And I'm going to grab that tag end. I'll hold my fingers up here. You'll see a lot of pros going like this, wrapping around. That's basically what they're doing. But we're going to wrap this around a couple, 3 times. And I'm going to pass it just like you did that improved clinch. And we tighten the whole thing down. And I'm going to tell you guys what, that works amazing on fluorocarbon. But it's also a good knot for anything. Doesn't matter what you're using. It's a great knot for that. Okay, now, see if I can get this undone. Because that is a pretty good knot. The next one, if you want to throw, let's say a top water plug, Rappalamenta, anything that doesn't have a split ring, I use what's called a loop knot. Now there's so many different versions of loop knots out there. John Cruz has got a great little loop knot that he does. You can actually look that up on YouTube. I've tried to tie it, and I've only got to click tight once. Doesn't mean it's a bad knot. It's just that I'm just not very good at tying it. So I just go back to the way I've been doing it since I was a kid. And I think I saw it in a Rapala manual, actually. Back when I used to put manuals in those things. What I do is I tie a loop. Overhand knot, just like you're tying a shoe. Overhand knot. Just like that. I'm going to go through the eye of the lure. I'm going to run this loop down against the lure, just like that. Hold that in my hand. I'm going to wrap this 3 or 4 times. I think 4 times is about usually what I do. Bring this around, go through both loops, like you would a clinch knot. I'm going to keep that tag end in my hand, and I'm going to start pulling this knot up here. The trick to this is, and there's your loop knot. See that? You just clip off tag end. And right there will be your tag end. That's your loop knot. The important part is, don't leave a big loop. Leave the smallest loop you can get your hands on, literally. I mean, I don't care if it's just a 1/4 inch off a lure. It's a loop knot. The less loop length that you have in your lure, the less foul ups you get on your cast. You won't get your lure caught up in the loop itself. Guilty, done that, okay? So keep this loop as short as you can. And it's going to take some practice to learn kind of how to feel that knot as you're tightening it, because some people I've seen over the years, if they tighten the tag first, they can keep the knot tight. If they tighten the main line first, they can keep the knot tight. Personally, I think it's how you're holding it. But as with all these knots, don't forget to moisten them. You've got to moisten these knots or else you'll cause friction and you just weaken that knot by 50%, if not more than that. Bluegill might be able to break your line. So think about that for a minute. Go back to tell your buddies next time and say, well, I had a 14-pound test on there, but a bluegill broke it. Let me explain that one. Yeah, I'll make a man out of you. Okay, so the last one I got was shown to me personally by the man himself at a gas station one night. But you can look it up on YouTube. This is the Gerald Swindle knot that he uses for fluorocarbon. I think he probably uses it for everything else too. But I've used this on fluorocarbon and it does work. You can't cinch it down real tight, but that's okay. You don't want to cinch down a knot tight on fluorocarbon because you'll break it. But this is called the Swindle Double Shendo Over the Creek Beside the Barn Foothold Knot. Long title, but a good knot. What he does is he doubles a line like you do a Palomar. He comes through. He wraps it 4, 5, 6, 7, doesn't matter. I'm just going to wrap it a few because this is paracord. It's kind of hard to tighten up. And then you pass it through just like you're making a double loop clinch knot. And you tighten it down, and there you go. You got a tag here. You got 2 tags right here in this loop you just fit in. And that's it. See if I can do this again. The Swindle Double Shendo Over the Creek Beside the Barn Foothold Knot. And I'll tell you something. I've used this. It works. Okay? That's just a simple, you're just basically just doubling your line and tying a clinch knot. And that's all you're doing. But because of the double line, it's going to hold. And that's all I've got, guys. I hope some of you guys can learn this. I hope the paracord was a good deal for you where you can actually see what's going on. And, you know, like I said, these are the knots that I use. But I'll be honest with you, if I had just to do the truth, and the knot that I use the most, that's the Palomar. If I need a gap between the lure as a loop, I use that loop knot. That's one of the only 2 knots I use most of the time. Seriously, I don't really go anywhere else with that because 9 times out of 10 I'm using Trilene XT, and I just use the loop knot and the Palomar. That's just about as simple as it gets. But I have nothing against the other 3 knots. I mean, they work exceptionally well. And, you know, as far as line strength, they work just fine. So anyway, I hope this helped you out, guys. I really do. So until next time, may the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name. And as always, fish on.